we're back again. Kyle, nice to have you here. We're going to talk about behind the scenes of a smooth closing.
Okay.
Not many people talk about that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to kind of see, what goes behind the contract, what you guys see as loan officers with agencies, and how all those relationships work.
Let's do it.
Yeah. So first question, what actually happens behind the scenes after a client goes under contract?
Great question. Really, the real estate agent has the keys to the vehicle at that point. They send us a signed contract. My job is to kind of connect all the parties, the title company, the real estate agent, the underwriter, the processor, get everyone on the same page. We have to get updated pay stubs from the client. We also order title, which is a whole nother topic. That takes, 15, 20 days. We order an appraisal. And then it's really kind of like a hurry up and wait because, we get in line for underwriting. And, underwriting is really this conveyor belt. And, sometimes people think that, we have a contract now. We gave you everything. What did the underwriter say? Well, there's, hundreds, if not hundreds of thousands of people buying homes at the exact same time as you that are also in line for underwriting. So we kind of get into this conveyor belt to where we wait our turn. So there's some hurry up and wait that goes into the process. But as far as the beginning part of the contract, that's kind of, the behind the scenes a little.
Okay, and we did a video on, underwriting and that process and how a lot of people don't understand that wait and how hard it is. So that relationship between you guys and even the buyer and the real estate agent is really important, right? Because they don't know what's going on. They don't know the underwriting process like you guys do.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. It's a lot of trust that has to be given to us. We're going to communicate, what we know. Hey, we're expecting to hear back within 24 to 48 hours. But a lot of that, and the mistakes that I see some people make is over-promising and under-delivering. And, I'd rather do the opposite. I'd rather tell you, it's going to take 5 days and it actually takes 2 than kind of promising 2 and it takes 5 because that just sets expectations completely off. And you're playing off your back foot the entire time, which is not what you want.
Yeah, and probably makes you as a loan officer anxious and just...
Yeah, and you don't want to ever put yourself in a situation where you have to apologize. You feel like you want to tell people what they want to hear, but you can't in this business. You have to be upfront and honest with them, set the proper expectations, and that's going to be what sets you up for somebody being appreciative of the service that you delivered at the end because you were honest with them and you did set the proper expectations.
Yeah, and that just goes to show the importance of having a local lender, a local broker that you can talk to and have that relationship with. Because do you get that with bigger banks? Do you get that with the bigger companies?
No.
Yeah.
No, you can't. I mean, I worked for a bigger company when I first started in this industry, and every call was recorded. So that means you can't take a cell phone call from a client. It needs to be recorded. So when you're home and it's a Sunday, you can't take that phone call. When you come back in Monday, you have 19 messages, and it's going to take you the whole day to return all those phone calls. So the turnaround time for the communication isn't very good when you work with a bank, a credit union, a big online lender. They're always going to be these office hours versus you work with a local lender.
Right.
They are self-employed. Their job is to please and to make you feel this level of service that you wouldn't normally feel if you were to call a place and you go through the phone tree. You're never going to go through a phone tree here. You're never going to get an operator, press 1 for this, press 2 for this. You just call, you get Kyle.
Yeah. Now, in that phone tree, do you see deals fall apart because of that? And how is the difference there between like deals closing with the brokerage versus the bigger banks?
Well, the biggest thing that I see is the miscommunication. At some of these bigger banks and some of these online lenders, you're talking to multiple people throughout the process. Versus here, you're talking to me, and you're talking to me and my team, and that's it. There's no one else. You're not going to have to communicate with the processor, then the underwriter, then the closing department. It's just 2 of us, 1 of us, just constantly handling the entire transaction. So that way, if you have a unique situation, you're not telling it to the first person you talk to. and then the next person, and then having to explain it to the next person, which, you may think is crazy, but if you talk to anybody who's gone through one of these, online lenders or, kind of 9-to-5 banks, they have to explain their situation multiple times.
Right.
Using, especially somebody who's like self-employed or has a unique credit situation from their past or a unique employment situation or income situation, the last thing they want to do is explain it over and over and over again.
Yeah, and we were just talking in our meeting about the standard, and even within the company, like that communication about, how they can better help you and the whole process, the streamline between, the underwriters and processing and all that, how to make sure that your buyer's situation is communicated well,
Yeah.
and how we as a company can better ourselves in that as well, which I thought was really interesting, and that kind of ties that way.
Yeah, I mean, it really is just about listening. If you take the time to listen to what your client or what your partner needs, you can deliver 100% of the time.
Yeah.
You're not going to have to worry about it.
Yeah, between you and agents and then agents and clients, they have to be informed throughout the deal. What are some communication tips or things that you do to keep that communication going and strong?
Yeah, I mean, every Friday I reach out to every single agent on every deal that I have, letting them know, an update. What happened that week, what's going to happen next week, what to expect for closing, whether we're ahead of schedule, behind schedule, if there's something they can do to help. But there's not a week that goes by that a listing agent or a buyer's agent doesn't hear from me. And, that's something they appreciate every single time. As far as the client is concerned, the borrower, the buyer, they hear from us multiple times a week. We're requesting things. We're touching base about when the appraisal came in, that we went through underwriting. So we're touching them constantly to make sure that they know where they're at. Even then, sometimes there's a bit of confusion as to where they're at in the process. So that's when it comes back to some of the educational materials we have, videos that we have, and just a plain conversation like, hey, if you remember, we talked about this, here's the step that we're on step 3, we have 4 more steps to go, and kind of take them through that. But essentially just the constant communication. Never have a blackout, never have a moment where like you haven't talked to somebody in 2 weeks. That should never happen.
Yeah, and you touched on the videos, I was thinking about that as well. Like, not only are you doing the in-person communication, you do weekly market in minutes, where you're informing, either it's clients or agents about the market. You're talking about refinance updates. You're doing things socially and digitally where you can reach people who maybe you haven't even talked to.
Mm-hmm.
And you're sending those emails. So I know we do that as a company, but how important is that for you to reach out digitally?
Yeah.
In communication there?
Well, I mean, you're only one person. I'm only one person. So it would be very hard to talk to the hundreds and hundreds of clients that I've served over the years each week or each month. Like, there's just not enough time in the day. So the best way to deliver a message to them that maybe I wanted to give them is by coming in here, recording a video, explaining, hey, here's where interest rates are at. If you have questions about refinancing, please reach out to us. Please reach out to me. But really, it's just a way to touch those people who, I wish I had the time in the day to call everybody, but I get a great amount of feedback saying, hey, I watched your video. I'm calling you now because I'm interested in a refinance, or I watched your video and I really learned a lot about mortgage insurance and your educational video. Can you explain to me how 5% down and 15% down changes the amount that I'm going to pay in mortgage insurance per month? It's a way to get yourself out there, but it's also, it just gives people a life draft to be able to be like, hey, I was really interested in this. Can you tell me more about it?
And this is all the preparation that comes to, closing a smooth deal, a smooth closing, and these are like the behind the scenes things.
Yeah.
Literally our topic of what you do to make sure you guys get to the table and close smoothly. As a wrap-up question, what's a recent deal that you're really proud of, a lot of behind the scenes work, and why is it so important to you?
Well, so there's one I could think of. I had a transaction where a retired couple, it was a very bumpy road, and one of the lenders and underwriters we were working with wasn't really understanding their situation, but I understood it very clear from talking with them, and I knew based on our conversations that, this was a deal. It was something they should be able to buy this house. And so I made the decision at a week from closing to switch to a completely different lender. And I just wasn't feeling the confidence from the one lender we were using, so I switched it to a completely different lender, which is something we can do as a broker. And we got that deal done within 7 days. So that was a retired couple who was moving from the Northeast to the South in the sunny state of Florida. They wanted their dream retirement home, and this was the home, and they were very scared that they were going to lose that. And, I made the executive decision to change. It could have pushed closing, and it did by a day, but at the end, it was worth it because I was afraid that other lender was going to be, we were pushing it for weeks, maybe, so.
So a lot of behind-the-scenes work there.
Yeah, not something that the borrower or the buyer had to really concern themselves. I mean, obviously they were concerned about the situation, but they didn't have to do any extra work for us to be able to switch and go to somebody else. That's just something, 15 years of experience kind of gives you. You just make the call.
You took the initiative to do that. And I mean, from 6 days to 7 days, 7 days is great.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I really liked hearing about behind the scenes. I think this is important for people to know, and appreciate you answering all those questions.
Thanks for having me.
Yep.